How are you? The Jewish sages teach Hakol bidei Shemayim chutz mir Shemayim. Everything that occurs comes from God, besides, literally it's translated the fear of God, but it doesn't really mean fear. It means the obedience to God. And that's a very profound statement because they also teach something else. The Jewish sages were tremendous mystics, knowledgeable in all fields, particularly in the field of truth. And they say, Megalgalim zchus al yidei zakai v'choiva al yidei chayev. That God brings about the ability to do good for the good and the ability to do bad for the bad. And these two statements are interlinked. And if you think about it very carefully, it's the most important thing you'll ever hear. Why? Because the first statement says that everything, and quantum physics has proven this, that everything is designed, that every single thing is designed except for one thing, your choice to believe in the creator or to deny that everything is designed. As Einstein said, he said, there are only two ways to live life, though everything is a miracle or as though nothing is a miracle. Because it's either way. If there is a God, he's the God of everything. And if there is no God, then there is nothing that is actually logical to begin with anyway. So the first premise, if there is a God, everything comes from God, includes the next premise, which is that God will use good people for good things because certain, the best example of life is the rose. It's very deep. There are 13 layers of petals on the rose. It represents the 13 mercies of God, 13 types of love. It's a very, very deep concept. We find that the rose has thorns. Most flowers don't have thorns. Why? Because the rose is very, very delicate. It has a beautiful scent, but it actually doesn't release its scent until another rose's thorns poke it. So each one of us has tremendous, basically, we're God, the light of God, the goodness, the compassion, because that's the essence of God, and it's our own essence. But we don't necessarily activate it. We may feel that way, as, who was it? Freud said, people admire, for example, people like Nelson Mandela. He's 27 years in prison for a good cause, but they don't necessarily do it. So the ability to act, not necessarily think, but the ability to implement your goodness takes a lot of, like the Jewish sages say, that the Jewish people like the olive, and it only gives oil when it's crushed. In other words, when we go through our difficulties, and most of us carry, there's a Buddhist doctrine, which I disagree with, but the doctrine is that everybody's suffering. So first of all, not everyone is suffering. There are some people that their problem is they've never suffered. They haven't been crushed. They're not focused. But be that as it may, the real truth is that if everybody or many people do suffer, and most of our suffering is not from physical circumstances, at least in Western countries, it's actually from emotional circumstances that people put us down for no reason. Our ego gets hurt. And what this really does is the ego is like a shell encasing the God within us. And the shell gets chipped away and broken. And then the real effective you, the you that can marry, people look at people, let's say like Trump, and they say, oh, well, he's a narcissist. He may be a narcissist, but at the same time, he destroyed ISIS. And ISIS was complete evil. So the point is that you have to be able to marry both compassion with action. Because if you're just compassionate and you're not actionable, and I'm not saying this to put anyone down, but studies show, or I should say a study shows, that, you would think, oh, liberals are the kindest, sweetest people in the world, but they're not. Because actually conservatives give more charity than liberals. So you see, it's not so much about the feelings in your heart, I love everyone. It's about the ability to implement those feelings, the ability to have self-discipline, to part with your money, to care enough sometimes to be upset by injustice and to do something about it. Now, of course, I'm sure there's some conservatives that are lazy and some liberals that are very generous. But the point that I'm trying to bring out is that just feelings don't create a better world. They are important for feeling compassion and empathy, but it's actually strength, and usually strength comes from difficulty that creates a better world. And so, in conclusion, what we have to realize is that the ultimate choice that we have in life is really just one thing. There's only really one choice in this life, because if everything comes from God, all the efforts that we put into things are they're important, but they're not as important as this following simple effort. And that is the ultimate decision. I will be a person of goodness and kindness. Because the moment you make that decision, God will create that those people that need to be helped will be helped through you. And then your life will be a life worth living. Thank you for watching.